We've all heard that old joke about the man who goes horseback riding and his horse throws him off the edge of a cliff, and somehow he manages to grab hold of a branch on his way down. And he hangs there for hours crying out for help until finally he hears a voice from up above say, "I've got you, I've got you. Just let go of the branch." And the man responds, "Anybody else up there?" Well, in so many ways, where we are in the story reminds me of that old joke. The Israelites have been rescued from slavery in Egypt. They've come out through the Red Sea and watched as the chariots of the Pharaoh have been drowned. As they have made their way so far in the desert, God has provided for them water and manna. And as they camped at the foot of the mountain, God took Moses up and gave him the rules for them to live a good community life in his presence. Well, where we pick up the story today is after a year of the Israelites camping there at the base of that mountain, living into those 10 commandments, finding out more about this God who is jealous and demands their full allegiance, learning to be the kinds of people who do not covet one another's possessions, who do not steal or lie, but instead people who care for one another, who honor fathers and mothers, and to seek to live in peace with the land that God has given them. Well, after a year of camping there, God once again calls them to get on the move. It's time, in God's mind, for the Hebrews to make their way into that land of promise, a land flowing with milk and honey. But along the way, the Hebrews seem to forget about this God who is leading them. Even though God appears to them as a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, they somehow begin to lose hope. First, they grow weary of manna and cry out for meat. Give us meat. So God sends quail. So much quail, in fact, that they eat it until it seems to be coming out of every orifice of their bodies. And then they cry out, "No more quail. Now we're thirsty. Now we're hungry. How much longer? Is anybody else up there?" Time and again, Moses intercedes on behalf of these people who seem so ungrateful and so forgetful, until finally God loses the divine patience and decides that not one of the Israelites who left Egypt will live to see the day when they enter the promised land. So while they were on a direct route there, God sends them off into the wilderness, where they will wander for 40 years until that first generation is gone and a new generation, a generation that might just be more grateful, comes into power. Along the way, in this 40 years of wandering, many things happen to the Israelites. They meet up with foreign powers who are not exactly friendly and don't exactly appreciate so many wandering nomads coming through their nation. At some time, God sends Moses to go to Joshua to send him into the land of promise and gather information about what it will be like there. Joshua and Caleb come back with wonderful news of a land indeed flowing with milk and honey. They bring back grapes that are ripe and juicy, and pomegranates and figs. They also bring back reports of a well-organized, well-settled community. And somehow that gets translated into the fact that the people in this land are so large that all of the Israelites are like grasshoppers before them. And word begins to spread in the encampment that they cannot possibly conquer this land. So once again they rise up to question God, in anger to cry out. Why did God bring them from Egypt where life was grand? Not forgetting that they were slaves, of course, out here to the wilderness where life is hard. Well, in addition to that skirmish, there's also an argument between Moses and Miriam and Aaron. Miriam and Aaron, it seems, get tired of seeing Moses get all the attention. And like siblings are wont to do, they decide that they can take over for Moses. They approach God themselves, and what they get is a strong rebuke. Moses is the chosen leader. Aaron is to be his mouthpiece. And Miriam, well, Miriam is cast with a leprous kind of disease, which sends her into hiding for over a week, so that all can see at Miriam's expense that it is indeed Moses who is the leader of the people. In the 40 years, while the people wander in the desert, they will learn to be utterly dependent upon God. As the forefathers and foremothers pass away out there, the newer generation will rise up as leaders in their own right to take over the reins of the leadership, not only of the journey itself, but even more so the journey of faith. Aaron will be laid to rest on Mount Hor. And as they reach the edge of the promised land, Moses himself will be laid to rest at the top of Mount Nebo. Symbolic of all those who have passed, Joshua will take over the reign and rule of the people and lead them this time across the Jordan into the land that has been promised. Friends, the journey with God is never easy. But God is faithful to the promise. We might wander a bit and question, We can even lose our way. But God continues to be the due north of our lives. God's will and work is always toward what is good for us. And God will never abandon us. So let's not be like the man hanging there in thin air, waiting for help. When you cry out, and your help comes in the name of the Lord, you can let go, for God has your back. Thanks for joining me this week in our continuing story of Scripture. Next week, Brother Nick will be with you again as he talks about the battle for that promised land. Joshua leading the way. It's a hard story to hear, but it's a necessary one. And I hope you'll join with him again, 7 p.m. next Sunday, right here on YouTube. God bless you. Good night.